Hello and welcome to the JSA Studio. I am your host, as always, Nathan, and today I'm coming at you with another video in my Big Ten Team by Team series. Today is our last video in this series, and we move on to other topics this year. But before we get into the video itself, it's at this time I am going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help out the channel if you did so. And now with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started by starting with Oregon's season in review. And kind of like the last few teams here, I don't really have a whole lot to say here. Okay, as far as the actual season went, you ended up beating a top 10 Boise State team early on in the season, handled business against everybody, including a really good Illinois team, the rivals. You did get tested by Wisconsin on the road right before your rivalry game, although you did have a bye week, whatever. That game was just kind of an anomaly. You got pushed a little bit by Michigan, but not really. You definitely got pushed by Ohio State. I do think Will Howard did probably slide down with time on the clock, and then you get an insta timeout that gets a chance to kick the field goal. Their field goal kicker sucks, so I think you probably win the game anyway. But if you had lost that game, I think you win the rematch in the Big Ten championship game, and you're probably not matching up with Ohio State in the first round, which was a disastrous matchup for you in the first round. That was a revenge game, and you lost largely, in my opinion, because it was a revenge game, not so much because they were that much better than you. So really, the whole conversation as far as reviewing your season goes is really about your grade more than it is about how the season went. Because going 13-0 and getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs, technically the second round, your first matchup of the playoffs, as the number one seed nonetheless as well, is a little bit disappointing. But you also went 13-0 and won the Big Ten. So is winning the Big Ten, going 13-0, which is not something you've done particularly consistently. You've had good years where you didn't win the Pac-12, and you had not as good years where you did win the Pac-12. Mainly the two times you won it with Justin Herbert. I believe you went 11-2, and you really should have gone 12-1 or 13-0 in those seasons, but you didn't. So a little bit disappointing there. But the question is Oregon the level of program where winning the conference championship doesn't particularly matter if you don't have the playoff success to go with it? And my answer to that is no. I think winning the conference championship, going 13-0, and just because you got bounced in the first round of the playoffs does not mean this season is a failure or a disappointment for the level of program that Oregon is, which is right now just outside of the Tier 1 level of programs in college football. Okay. Tier 1, I think there's probably 4, maybe 5 teams in Tier 1 right now. Okay. Georgia, Michigan's only a year away from 3 straight Big Ten championships and a national championship. They're still in Tier 1. Ohio State's in Tier 1, and I would argue right now probably the only other person that has an argument to be in that Tier 1, or the only other program rather than person to be in that top tier, is probably Texas, because they won the Big 12, made the playoffs this past year. They won a playoff game, but even then, not really. I don't really think Texas is in there. So there's probably only 3 Tier 1 programs right now, unless I'm forgetting a team, because Alabama sure as fuck ain't in there either. Okay, I'm very, very restrictive in terms of who I think is in the Tier 1 of programs. If Alabama wins the SEC next year, maybe they get back into Tier 1, but they haven't won the SEC. They haven't won a national championship in quite a few years. I think 2020, and they haven't won the SEC except for 2 years ago, and then I think the last time they won it again was 2020. But Alabama would probably be 4, and then I think you can make a very, very compelling argument for Texas at 5 and Oregon at 6 in terms of the state of programs in college football right now. I mean, there are other teams in that conversation as well, but probably are below Oregon as well. So I'm not sure Oregon is the level of program and the level of consistent program where winning the conference championship and then not having playoff success is considered a disappointing season. I don't think you're there yet, okay? I don't. Because let's be real, outside of that, honestly, 2-year run with Marcus Mariota at Oregon, you weren't really a national threat the entire existence of this program. You've never won a national championship, not to bring up old wounds or anything, but you've never won a national championship, and you weren't really all that consistent in terms of competing within the Pac-12 either until Chip Kelly got there. Chip Kelly, I think, won like 3 straight or something fucking stupid like that from 2009, 10, and 11, I think. And then he took a couple-year hiatus, 2014 with DeMarcus Mariota. You had that run there. And then you didn't really win anything. Kind of in a weak conference. 1-2 with Justin Herbert in 2019 and 2020. And then you didn't win it in 2021, 2022, or 2023. And I get it. You were very good in 2023 as well. You lost to Washington twice. Okay. If you win one of those games, you probably make the playoffs as 12-1 over Alabama even. But that's not what happened. All of this is to say, I don't think you're the kind of program that can just throw away a conference championship. Like, hypothetically, a Michigan team, if they had won the conference this year, could have thrown it away. Or like what Ohio State was doing when they won the Big Ten every year before Michigan went on their 3-year run, where they weren't winning the national title, so who gave a fuck that they were winning the Big Ten? Okay? You're not at that level of program. Now, guess what? You win the Big Ten again this year, you might be at that level of program. You're right there. You're very, very close. Again, in my program rankings right now, you're probably number 6. And honestly, that's a good idea for a video. I might do that now. Rank like the top 15 programs in college football. Anyway, all this is to say the season's an A+ because you won the conference championship. And A+ are reserved exclusively for champions of some sort. As far as looking ahead towards next year, you are one of 3 Big Ten teams that I have absolute confidence in that you're going to be very, 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 very good next year, okay? It's you, Penn State, and Illinois. Again, various degrees of being good, but they're all going to be good. Obviously, the biggest question mark, and I think if we're being entirely honest here, the only question mark the 2025 Oregon Ducks have is the quarterback position. However, since Dan Lanning got there, you haven't missed at the quarterback position. I have no reason to believe you will miss with Dante Moore. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Detroit kid and I root for everybody from the state of Michigan to be hyped for successful all the time, although that's probably part of it. Anyway, I do think he's going to be good. I do think you're going to get high-level quarterback play. You're returning a lot. You've got wide receivers coming back. You've got wide receivers coming in that are really good. Yeah, you're losing an offensive lineman and a couple of defensive linemen, but you've reloaded at those positions very effectively in the past. I have no reason to believe you won't be able to do that again. So I don't really see a hole on this roster or anything really to talk about other than the quarterback position. And even then, I don't really have a whole lot of question marks there because I'm pretty sure Dante Moore is going to be good. You also have a tremendously manageable schedule. A very, very, very manageable schedule here. Okay, you open against Montana State, easy W. Oklahoma State, been, more on a downturn recently, at least this past year. They were kind of good the year before that. But I don't know what that program really looks like right now in the NIL era. I'm going to pencil that in as another pretty easy W. At Northwestern, Northwestern does not have the athletes to be able to compete with you. W. Home against Oregon State. Yeah, I mean, rivalry game, but it's not really a rivalry game. I think the all-time record is like 86-17. W. Then you go on the road to Penn State. That game's tough. That game's tough, but James Franklin does not win big games. So I'm leaning towards that being a W. It should be a 50-50 game on paper, but I'm leaning towards that being a W because James Franklin doesn't win big games. Home against Indiana should also be a W. On the road at Rutgers could potentially be the trap game. I mean, because I don't really see a trap game on this schedule here. I really, really don't see it at this point, because the only other game, Iowa, which is after you play Wisconsin at home, is coming off of a bye week. So you should be able to prepare for that, even though it is on the road. And I do think Iowa will be a quality football team next year. But I don't think Minnesota is going to be able to do what they want to do to teams against you. USC, I have no clue how good USC is going to be. That could be the L if you're looking for a reason to not say 12-0. And then at Washington, again, Washington very, very good at home. Rivalry game, you never know. I would say probably worst case scenario, you're 10-2 and you still make the playoffs. Unless you miss on the quarterback position, then the floor is 0 wins because you missed on the quarterback position. But I just I really struggle to see a loss in this schedule, because I think even if USC takes that step forward and they're like a 9-3 quality football team, you should still blast them out of the water. And Washington, I get it. Their rivalry game, quality team, don't beat themselves, all that kind of stuff with Jedd Fisk. I think Jedd Fisk is a very good football coach. They don't have the talent right now. I do really like their quarterback, and maybe they can get the talent in the future. They might have the talent offensively to keep pace to a certain extent, but they don't have the talent defensively to slow you down enough. So I'm really struggling to find a loss on this schedule here. I think 12-0 is a very, very realistic possibility for this Oregon team, at least right now. But that's just me, and what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. To this point, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree with me at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section below. And now with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that's that I'll see you next time.